Jim Miller, most UFC wins, 26 victories inside the octagon. That's not a hot streak or a lucky run. That's 15 years of showing up, staying relevant, and refusing to fade away. Miller's been fighting in the UFC since 2008. He's outlasted entire weight classes, multiple eras of champions, and countless fighters who were supposed to be the next big thing. The man's fought through rule changes, drug testing overhauls, and complete shifts in fighting style. And he's still here. Here's why no one's catching him. To even get close, you'd need to start young, stay healthy, and win consistently for over a decade. That means no career-ending injuries, no long layoffs, no losing streaks that get you cut. Miller fought 3, sometimes 4 times a year during his prime. Modern fighters barely hit 2. The wear adds up, knees give out, hands break. Brains take damage, and the UFC doesn't keep you around just for nostalgia. You have to win enough to stay on the roster. Miller wasn't always destroying people. He lost plenty, but he won enough to matter, stayed active enough to keep his spot, and somehow his body held together when others fell apart. That's the brutal part. It's not about being the best. It's about being good enough for long enough. And in a sport where one bad knockout can end everything, that's almost impossible. No current fighter is even close. Most guys flame out by fight 20. The ones who make it past 30 fights are legends. Miller's at 44 total UFC appearances. That's not just a record, that's a completely different level of durability. The sport's too violent now. The competition's too deep, and bodies don't last like they used to. Miller's win record isn't just unbreakable, it's probably the last of its kind. Demetrius Johnson, most title defenses in a single reign. 11 consecutive, not 11 total title fights. 11 straight defenses without losing the belt once. From 2012 to 2018, Mighty Mouse turned the flyweight division into his personal lab. He didn't just beat contenders, he styled on them. Submissions, knockouts, decisions. Didn't matter. He had an answer for everything. The flyweight division gave him the perfect storm. It was new, so he got in early. And it was shallow, so the competition never truly caught up to his skill level. He was faster, smarter, and more technical than everyone else in that weight class. But here's the thing, the UFC doesn't even care about flyweight anymore. They nearly shut the division down entirely. That means no new wave of talent is coming to challenge this record. The pathway doesn't exist. To break it, you'd need a champion who's not just dominant, but also fighting in a division the UFC actually promotes. You'd need 11 guys good enough to earn title shots, but not good enough to win. And you'd need to avoid injuries, weight cut disasters, and bad judging for years. Johnson did all of that. He also did it in an era before every contender had world-class coaching and film study. Modern fighters are too well-rounded now. There are no easy defenses anymore. Even champions who look unstoppable rarely make it past 5 defenses. John Jones had breaks between reigns. Amanda Nunes retired. Kamaru Usman lost. Johnson's 11 straight sits alone because it required perfection in an imperfect sport. And the flyweight era that made it possible? That's gone. The division barely exists now. So yeah, this one's locked in history. No one's getting 11 straight again. Derrick Lewis. Most knockouts. 14. That's 14 times he's put someone to sleep inside the octagon. Not TKOs. Not referee stoppages because a guy was too hurt to continue. Full shutdowns. Lights out. Lewis has been doing this since 2014, and the body count just keeps stacking. His power is stupid. Heavyweight stupid. The kind that makes coaches tell their fighters to just survive, not win. Here's the problem with chasing this record. You need 2 things that almost never exist together. Freak power and longevity. Most knockout artists either get knocked out themselves or their bodies give up. Heavyweights don't last. Their frames take too much damage. Their knees buckle under the weight. And one bad night ends everything. Lewis has somehow avoided that. He's been dropped, hurt, taken down, and controlled. But he keeps coming back. And when he lands, people fall. The other issue? Volume. 14 knockouts means you need at least 20-something fights in the UFC. Most heavyweights don't get that many chances. The division moves slow. Fights get canceled, injuries pile up, and if you lose 2 in a row, you're gone. Lewis has lost plenty, but he's always won enough to stick around. That's rare. Guys with his power usually rely on it too much, get figured out, and fade. Lewis never evolved into some technical master, but he stayed dangerous. That's the difference. To break this, you'd need to be a knockout artist who doesn't get knocked out, stays healthy for a decade, and fights often enough to rack up attempts. That's not happening. Modern matchmaking is too careful. Fighters take longer breaks, and one loss to a wrestler ends your hype train. Lewis built this record in an era where he could just keep swinging. That window's closed now. Charles Oliveira, most submission wins, 16. That's more than anyone in UFC history. He's tapped out guys with guillotines, rear nakeds, arm triangles, and chokes most fans can't even pronounce. Oliveira's been in the UFC since 2010, grinding through losses, weight cuts, and doubters. Then he figured it out. Elite jiu-jitsu plus fearless striking. That's the formula. And once it clicked, he became a nightmare. The reason this record's untouchable? Submissions are dying. Modern fighters are too good at defense. Everyone trains jiu-jitsu now. Everyone knows how to hand fight, frame, and survive. Back when Oliveira started, there were still guys getting into the UFC with holes in their grappling. Not anymore. The skill floor is too high now, and even elite grapplers can't finish like they used to. Opponents are too prepared. Oliveira didn't just get submissions, he got them in title fights against killers in moments where most guys would have quit. He's been dropped, hurt, and written off more times than anyone can count, but he kept finding necks. That combination of skill and volume over 15 years, almost impossible to replicate. You'd need to start young, avoid injuries, and stay relevant long enough to rack up 30-plus UFC fights. Most guys don't make it past 15. Even the best grapplers in the UFC right now aren't close. Islam Makhachev has 11. Demian Maia retired with 9. The sport's evolved past the submission-heavy era. Fighters are too defensive now. Scrambles are shorter. Positions are safer. Oliveira built this record in a transition period where he could still catch people. That gap's closed, the grappling meta's shifted, and no one's putting up 16 submissions again. Not in this version of MMA. Anderson Silva, longest title reign by time, 2,457 days. That's 6 years and 9 months of being the guy, not just holding a belt, being the most feared fighter on the planet. From 2006 to 2013, Silva was untouchable. He made elite middleweights look like amateurs, front kicks to the face, matrix dodges, knockouts that seemed scripted. It wasn't just dominance, it was art. Here's why no one's matching that. The UFC moves faster now. Interim belts get handed out like candy. Champions get stripped for injuries. Fighters take longer breaks between fights. And the matchmaking's more aggressive. Back in Silva's era, champions could sit for 6-7 months between defenses. Now, the UFC books title fights every few months. If you're not ready, they move on. That compresses reigns. Even great champions don't get the time Silva had. Then there's the competition. Silva fought killers, sure, but the depth wasn't what it is now. Every middleweight today has world-class training, nutrition, and film study. There are no easy defenses anymore, and one bad night ends everything. Silva's reign ended with a brutal knockout, one leg kick. That's how close these things are to falling apart. Modern champions know that. They've seen it happen too many times. To break this, you'd need to win the belt young, defend it constantly, and never lose for 7 years. That's not happening. John Jones came close but lost the belt to suspensions. Kamaru Usman lost after years of dominance. Israel Adesanya got finished. The sport's too volatile now. One injury, one bad stylistic matchup, one off night, and the reign's over. Silva's 2,457 days happened in a specific era of MMA. That era's gone. This record's staying put. Jim Miller, most UFC fights, 44, not wins. Total fights inside the octagon. That's nearly double what most veterans rack up in their entire careers. Miller's been taking punches, eating elbows, and absorbing damage since 2008. His record isn't pretty. He's lost plenty. But he keeps showing up, and somehow the UFC keeps booking him. To even approach this number, you'd need 15 years minimum. That means starting in your early 20s and fighting into your late 30s without a major injury derailing everything. Miller tore ligaments, broke bones, and took brutal knockouts. And he came back every time. That's not normal. Most fighters hit 20 fights and their bodies tap out. Knees give up, backs go, hands don't heal right. The accumulation of damage catches everyone eventually. The other barrier? Staying employed. The UFC cuts fighters constantly. You need to win enough to stay relevant, but not lose so much they boot you. Miller walked that line perfectly. He'd lose 2, win 2, stay just valuable enough to keep around. That's a skill in itself. Knowing when to take fights, who to fight, and how to survive without being a star. Most guys can't do that. They either flame out or retire early. Modern fighters are smarter about longevity now. They take breaks. They fight twice a year max. They protect their bodies. That's good for them, but bad for this record. Fewer fights per year means fewer chances to build volume. Miller fought 3-4 times a year during his prime. That pace doesn't exist anymore, and the sport's more dangerous now. Competition's deeper. One bad loss, and you're gone. Miller's 44 fights came from a specific era of matchmaking and durability. That combination isn't coming back. Jorge Masvidal, fastest knockout, 5 seconds. Ben Askren walked toward him at the opening bell. Masvidal sprinted full speed and launched a flying knee directly into his face. Lights out. The fight was over before most fans even sat down. It wasn't a lucky punch. It was a premeditated execution. Masvidal knew Askren shot takedowns immediately, so he turned the opening seconds into a highlight reel. Here's why no one's beating this. 5 seconds doesn't leave room for improvement. You can't get faster unless you knock someone out before the bell rings. And that's not how physics works. Masvidal's knockout required perfect timing, perfect distance, and Askren doing exactly what Masvidal expected. That's not replicable. You'd need an opponent who rushes in blindly and a fighter who's willing to gamble everything on one strike in the first exchange. Modern fighters are too careful now. Everyone studies film. Everyone knows their opponent's tendencies. Coaches game plan around fast starts. The element of surprise that Masvidal used, that's gone. Fighters touch gloves, circle, feel each other out. No one's sprinting across the cage anymore, and even if they did, opponents are ready for it now. Askren wasn't. He thought Masvidal would back up. Wrong. The other issue? Risk tolerance. Throwing a flying knee in the opening seconds is insane. If you miss, you're off balance, gassed, and in trouble. Masvidal didn't care. He committed fully. That's rare. Most fighters protect themselves first. They don't hunt for viral moments in the first 5 seconds. Masvidal did, and it worked, but that kind of chaos doesn't happen twice. This record's not just unbreakable, it's unrepeatable. No one's knocking someone out faster than 5 seconds. The sport doesn't work that way anymore. Oleg Taktarov, fastest submission, 9 seconds, guillotine choke. His opponent shot a takedown immediately, and Taktarov just wrapped his arm around the neck and squeezed. Tap, done. This happened back in the early UFC days when fighters were still figuring out what worked. Submissions were faster then because defense wasn't built yet. Guys didn't know how to hand fight or posture properly. They just got choked. Beating this record would require a perfect storm. Your opponent has to attack recklessly in the first exchange. You have to catch a submission opportunity instantly, and they have to tap before 9 seconds runs out. That's almost impossible now. Modern fighters don't rush takedowns blindly. They set them up. They feint. They level change properly. The kind of desperation shot that got Taktarov's opponent caught, that doesn't happen at this level anymore. Even elite grapplers need time to secure submissions. You have to grip fight, adjust position, and lock in the choke or joint lock properly. That takes 20-30 seconds minimum. Taktarov got it in 9 because his opponent gave him everything he needed immediately. No resistance, no defense, just a neck in the perfect position. You can't game plan for that. It's pure chaos meeting perfect technique. The other problem? Submission defense is too advanced now. Fighters know how to survive early danger. They know not to give up their necks. They train specifically to avoid fast submissions. The grappling meta has evolved past the point where 9-second finishes are even possible. Taktarov's record exists in a time capsule. Early UFC. Limited grappling knowledge. Reckless offense meeting elite technique. That era is over. This record's never getting broken. You'd need to invent a time machine and fight someone from 1995. That's the only way. Glover Teixeira, oldest UFC champion. 42 years old when he won the light heavyweight title. Not 42 when he defended it. 42 when he took it. He choked out Jan Blachowicz in 2021 and became the oldest first-time champion in UFC history. Glover had been in the UFC since 2012, fought killers for a decade, lost title eliminators, got knocked out by younger guys, and somehow at an age when most fighters are retired or doing commentary, he won the belt. Here's why no one's breaking this. Father Time is undefeated. 42-year-old bodies don't recover like 25-year-old bodies. Glover's win was an anomaly, a combination of veteran skill, favorable matchmaking, and sheer toughness. But even he couldn't hold the belt. He lost it in his first defense to a younger, faster opponent. That's what happens. Age catches everyone. Reaction time slows, durability fades, and the competition's too good now to rely on experience alone. To beat this record, you'd need to start your UFC career late, stay healthy into your 40s, and somehow be good enough to win a title against killers in their primes. That's not happening. Most fighters are washed by 38. The ones who make it to 40 are either gatekeepers or retired. Glover was the exception, not the rule. And even his reign was short. The sport's also getting younger. Champions are winning belts at 25, 26 now. They're hitting their primes earlier and retiring earlier. The old guard veterans who grind for 15 years, they're disappearing. Glover's record stands because it required a perfect mix of longevity, skill, and timing. And at 42, there's no room for someone to come along and do it better. The body won't allow it. This one's sealed. John Jones, youngest UFC champion, 23 years old. He took the light heavyweight belt from Mauricio Rua in 2011 and immediately became the most terrifying fighter in the sport. At 23, most fighters are still figuring out their style. Jones was already dismantling legends. His reach was absurd, his creativity was unmatched, and his fight IQ was levels above anyone else in the division. Breaking this record would require a prodigy, not just a talented young fighter, a once-in-a-generation talent who's ready for championship-level competition before their brains even fully developed. That's insanely rare. Most 23-year-olds in the UFC are still building experience, learning, losing. They're not ready for 5-round wars against killers. Jones was, and that's why this record's untouchable. The UFC also doesn't fast-track young fighters anymore. They're more careful now. Prospects get built slowly. Even obvious future champions like Israel Adesanya didn't get title shots until they were 29. The days of throwing a 23-year-old into a championship fight, the organization learned that rushing talent backfires, bodies break, hype trains derail, so they wait. Even if a 22-year-old phenom showed up tomorrow, they'd need at least 4 or 5 UFC wins to earn a title shot. That's 2 years minimum. By then, they're 24, 25. Too late. Jones got his shot because the light heavyweight division was thin and he was destroying everyone. That perfect storm isn't coming back. Modern divisions are too deep. Matchmaking's too calculated, and the kind of freak athleticism and skill Jones had at 23, that's not walking through the door again. This record's locked. No one's winning a UFC title younger than Jon Jones. Khabib Nurmagomedov, most takedowns in a fight. 21 against Abel Trujillo in 2013. That's 21 times Khabib put a professional fighter on his back in 15 minutes. It wasn't just wrestling, it was domination. Trujillo couldn't stop it, couldn't escape it, couldn't do anything but survive. Every round, Khabib dragged him down, held him there, and did it again, and again, and again. Here's why this record's unbeatable. Modern fighters don't let you take them down 21 times. Takedown defense is too good now. Everyone trains wrestling. Everyone knows how to sprawl, frame, and get back up. The kind of one-sided mauling Khabib delivered to Trujillo, that doesn't happen at the highest level anymore. Opponents are too prepared. They study footage. They drill specifically to stop wrestlers. Even elite wrestlers today don't hit double digits in takedowns. 5 or 6 is considered dominant. 10 is rare. 21 is from another planet. Khabib did it because Trujillo had terrible defensive wrestling, and Khabib's style was built entirely around chain wrestling. He didn't need to finish takedowns perfectly. He just needed to keep dragging you down. That volume approach worked against Trujillo. But against modern competition, they'd adjust. They'd make it a striking fight. They'd survive. The other issue? Khabib never chased this record again. Even he knew it was a one-time thing. In his later fights, he mixed in striking, submissions, and control. He didn't need 21 takedowns. He just needed enough to win. That fight against Trujillo was a statement, a wrestling clinic. But it's not replicable. You'd need an opponent with 0 takedown defense and a fighter willing to grind for 15 minutes without looking for a finish. That's not how fights work anymore. This record's staying at 21 forever. Max Holloway, most significant strikes landed in a fight, 445, against Calvin Kattar in 2021. 5 rounds of absolute violence. Holloway didn't just outwork Kattar. He broke him. Jabs, straights, hooks, elbows, everything. Kattar's face looked like it went through a car accident, and Holloway just kept throwing. Round after round, no quit, no slowdown, just relentless output. This record's unbreakable because 445 strikes requires everything to go right. Your opponent has to stand in front of you for 25 minutes. They have to be tough enough not to get finished, but not skilled enough to stop you. They have to keep coming forward even though they're getting destroyed. Kattar did all of that. Most fighters wouldn't. They'd shoot takedowns. They'd clinch. They'd survive. Kattar just ate punches and kept fighting. Holloway also has cardio that doesn't exist in normal humans. 5 rounds of throwing hundreds of strikes, and he never slowed down. His output in the 5th round was the same as the first. That's not normal. Most fighters gas by round 3. Their arms get heavy. Their punches lose speed. Holloway's different. He's built for volume, but even he's never come close to 445 again. That fight was a perfect storm. Modern fighters are too defensive now. They don't stand in the pocket and trade. They move. They wrestle. They clinch. The kind of prolonged striking battle Holloway and Kattar had, that's rare, and even when it happens, the output's not close to 445. This record required one of the best strikers in UFC history facing an incredibly tough opponent who refused to quit. That combination's not happening again. Holloway's 445 is locked in. No one's landing more significant strikes in a single fight. The sport won't allow it. Demetrius Johnson, most consecutive title fight wins. 14 straight. That's not just defenses, that's every title fight from the moment he won the belt until he left the UFC. 14 times he stepped into the biggest moment and won. Submissions, decisions, knockouts. Didn't matter. He had answers for everything, and he did it in a division that no longer exists in the same form. Breaking this record would require perfection. You'd need to win the belt and then never lose it for over 5 years. No injuries that cost you the title. No bad nights. No close decisions that go the wrong way. Just 14 straight wins against the best in the world? That's almost impossible. Even dominant champions slip up. They get caught. They face bad stylistic matchups. Johnson never did. He adjusted to every opponent and found a way to win. The flyweight division also gave him a unique opportunity. It was shallow enough that he was levels above everyone else, but deep enough that he had legitimate contenders to beat. That balance doesn't exist anymore. Modern champions either face killers every fight or weak competition. Johnson had the perfect middle ground, and the UFC doesn't even care about flyweight now. The division barely exists. So the pathway to 14 straight title wins in that weight class? Gone. Even legends don't hit 14 straight. John Jones had gaps in his reign. Anderson Silva got finished. Georges St-Pierre retired. Amanda Nunes lost. Mighty Mouse did something no one else has done. And the sport's too competitive now for it to happen again. One bad round can cost you everything. One wrestle-heavy opponent can grind out a decision. One knockout ends the streak. Johnson never let it happen, and no one's replicating that level of dominance ever again. This record's untouchable. John Jones, most wins in title fights. 15, not defenses, total wins in championship bouts. That includes winning the belt, defending it, losing it, and winning it again. Jones has been at the highest level longer than anyone. He's beaten legends, prospects, grinders, and strikers. Light heavyweight, heavyweight, didn't matter. He kept winning. This record's unbreakable because it requires two things that rarely coexist: dominance and longevity. You have to be good enough to win title fights consistently, and you have to stay in title fights for over a decade. Most champions don't last that long. They lose the belt and never get it back, or they retire, or they move to a different weight class and start over. Jones just kept fighting for titles and kept winning. Even the all-time greats don't have 15 title fight wins. Anderson Silva had 14. Georges St-Pierre had 13. Demetrius Johnson had 12. Jones passed them all, and he's still fighting. He's still winning. That's the terrifying part. This record might grow before he retires, but even if he stopped today, no one's catching him. The competition's too steep. The divisions are too deep, and bodies don't hold up long enough anymore. To break this, you'd need to win your first title at 23 and defend it until you're 38. That's 15 years of championship-level fighting, no major injuries, no losses that derail your career, no suspensions or controversies that cost you years. Jones had all of those things and still sits at 15 title fight wins. That tells you how rare this is. Modern fighters don't get 15 chances at title fights. They get 5, maybe 6. Jones built this record across 2 decades. That's not happening again. This one's sealed forever. Frankie Edgar, longest octagon time, over 7 hours of total fight time. That's not counting training, not counting wars in the gym, just official UFC fights. Edgar's been in 5-round wars, 3-round battles, and every kind of fight in between. His career spanned from 2007 to 2024. Nearly 2 decades of taking punches, eating shots, refusing to quit. This record's unbreakable because it requires a specific kind of fighter, someone durable enough to survive hundreds of rounds but skilled enough to keep getting booked. Edgar was never a knockout artist. He won decisions. That means his fights went the distance. A lot. And over 17 years, that time adds up. But most fighters don't last that long. Their bodies give out. Their chins crack. They retire before hitting 7 hours. The other factor? Main events. Edgar fought in title fights and 5-rounders constantly. Those add 10 extra minutes per fight compared to undercard bouts. Most fighters never sniff that level of competition. They fight 3-rounders their entire career. Edgar lived in championship rounds. That's where the time comes from. But getting there requires being elite for over a decade. That's rare. Modern fighters also take more time off. They fight twice a year if they're lucky. Edgar fought 3-4 times annually during his prime. That volume doesn't exist anymore. Fighters protect their health now. They take breaks. They avoid damage. That's smart, but it also means they won't rack up 7 hours of octagon time. Edgar did it the old way. Constant activity, constant punishment, constant wars. And somehow his body held together long enough to build this record. No one's doing that again. The sport's moved past that level of punishment. Edgar's 7+ hours is the last of its kind. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.